We see in Revelation chapter 13, which doesn't happen until after Satan and his angels are cast from heaven to earth at the woe of the fifth trumpet, a beast rise up out of the sea having 7 heads and 10 horns, the sea being symbolic of peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, the 7 heads being 7 mountains, literally, that is to say the 7 continents of the planet Earth, and the 10 horns are symbolic of 10 fallen angel kings, and you can find all this written in Revelation chapter 17. So we're talking about a one world political system, and as it's written in Revelation chapter 13, the dragon, that is to say Satan, gives this political beast his power and his seat and great authority. It then receives a deadly wound, after which Satan appears as Antichrist in Jerusalem at the woe of the 6th trumpet, which is when it goes from being a one world political system to a one world religious system. Those who were virgins, spiritually speaking, but at the 6th seal, the 6th trumpet, and the 6th vial, they'll become the whore of Babylon, the negative opposite of the virgin bride of Christ, who we see being burned with fire, so to speak, by the 10 fallen angel kings in Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. Those 10 horns who are part of the supernatural element of the one world system, the beast having 7 heads, which are the 7 continents of the planet Earth, because it's a global government. So these 10 fallen angel kings reign with Satan throughout the hour of temptation. In the first half, which is the political, then after the deadly wound to the one world political system, when Satan appears as the false Christ. That's when it becomes religious, and for every negative there's a positive, and as you can see on page 1889 of the Companion Bible, in the note on verse 4, the 24 elders were a pattern after which David arranged his 24 courses of the sons of Aaron. And if you go to Appendix 179, as you can see, the 24 priestly courses occurred twice in the year, each for 2 weeks. That's 14 days. So if the 10 fallen angel kings are the negative counterfeit, what's 10 times 14 days? The 10 toes being the 10 horns that you can read of in Daniel chapter 7, as well as Revelation 13. The 10 fallen angel kings that receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. And whenever it says beast in Revelation chapter 17, it means Satan himself. It's a general term for Satan, regardless of what role he's playing at the time. The 10 fallen angel kings reign 1 hour with Satan during the hour of temptation. The true Christ doesn't return until immediately after the tribulation of those days, the 7 days that are actually years of Daniel's 70th week, which have been shortened from 7 years to 5 months. It begins with the woe of the 5th trumpet, with the head of gold being the lion, the Christian nations, the chest and arms of silver being the bear, the non-Christian nations, the belly of brass being the leopard, the Kenites, that is to say, and their 4 hidden dynasties, and the legs, feet, and toes of iron being Daniel's 4th beast, the supernatural, the clay just being symbolic of the fact that it's supernatural beings, Satan and his angels, in a one world system together with human beings. Notice you only see the clay mentioned in Daniel chapter 2. You don't see it in Daniel chapter 7. That's because Daniel 2 gives you the whole thing as one image, one many-membered body, whereas Daniel chapter 7 shows you the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the 4th beast individually. All 4 make up the first beast written of in Revelation chapter 13, the image of Daniel chapter 2. The hour of temptation, Daniel's 70th week, begins with the woe of the 5th trumpet, when the 4 beasts written of in Daniel chapter 7, which are ultimately the same thing as you see described in Daniel chapter 2. They don't rise up out of the sea, which is symbolic of the peoples of the world as the one world political system, until the woe of the 5th trumpet. And that you can read of in Revelation chapter 13 also. It'll have 7 heads, which as we know from Revelation chapter 17 are 7 mountains, that is to say the 7 continents of the earth. So it's a global system, in other words, and it'll have 10 horns, which are 10 fallen angel kings that reign 1 hour with the beast, that is to say Satan, both in the political half and in the religious half of the 5-month-long hour of temptation. Notice in Revelation chapter 13, the dragon gives the political beast his power and his seat and great authority. That's when Satan confirms the covenant with many for 1 week, Daniel's 70th week, which is now 5 months. The clay is not a fifth kingdom. There are only 4 kingdoms written of here. The types were Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, and they correspond to the 4 beasts of Daniel chapter 7. And only the 4th beast, which is exclusively supernatural, has 10 horns, the 10 fallen angel kings, which the 10 toes are symbolic of in the ultimate futurist sense. Historically, 146 BC in the Battle of Corinth marked the beginning of Roman domination in Greek history, with Rome adopting the Greek mythology, which was loosely based on the fallen angels, integrating their so-called gods heavily into their government, which is what the clay symbolizes in the historical sense. And the same can be said for Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, world empires of the time, which altogether symbolize the so-called New World Order of Revelation 13. And in looking for a type of the 10 toes within Rome, you'd look for them to be successive also from 146 BC and the Battle of Corinth to when Christ died on the cross. Ending the type and beginning the gap we also see in Daniel chapter 9, the type of the 10 kings being, in my opinion, the 10 most historically relevant statesmen, generals, and politicians of the Roman Republic in the years leading up to the Roman Empire, with the role of Roman emperor obviously being a type of Satan's role of Antichrist. The little horn you can read of in Daniel chapter 7, with the type ending at the end of Christ's first advent, marked by his death on the cross, then the gap that you can read of in Daniel chapter 9, which ends at the woe of the 5th trumpet, when the one world political system emerges, having 7 heads, which are the 7 continents of the planet Earth, and 10 horns, which are the 10 fallen angel kings, cast to earth with Satan at the woe of the 5th trumpet, along with the rest of his fallen angels, who are the locust army written of in Revelation chapter 9. But there shall be in it of the strength of iron, and we can also see iron written of in Revelation chapter 9 verse 9 in the description of Satan's fallen angel locust army, who are part of Daniel's 4th beast, along with those 10 fallen angel kings. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet, the 10 fallen angel kings ultimately were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken, because in the ultimate futurist sense, the lion, the bear, and the leopard are made up of flesh men, but Daniel's 4th beast is supernatural, the only one out of the 4 with 10 horns, symbolic of 10 fallen angel kings. And in this next verse, we see the meaning of the clay. It's not symbolic of another kingdom, it's symbolic of the fact that they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. The supernatural will mix with the human in the one world system during the 5-month-long hour of temptation, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay, which means this one world system will not last, because as we're about to see in the next verse, the true Christ upon his return at the 7th trumpet will destroy the one world system this image is symbolic of in the ultimate futurist sense. But again, the type ended when Christ died on the cross, and here we see the gap between the 69 weeks of Daniel chapter 9 and Daniel's 70th week, the 5-month-long hour of temptation. It was 7 years, but it's been shortened to 5 months, as you can see in Revelation chapter 9, that 5-month-long hour of temptation ending when the true Christ returns at the 7th trumpet. As you can see in verse 44, and in the days of these kings, I repeat, in the days of these kings, meaning the 4 kingdoms written of here that make up this image, are ultimately symbolic of the 4 beasts of Daniel chapter 7, the one world system that's destroyed whenever the true Christ returns. So in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. For as much as thou sawest that the stone, that is to say the true rock, was cut out of the mountain without hands, born of a virgin, that is to say, the only begotten Son of God, in that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold. Notice they're all destroyed at the same time. Satan's angels, as well as his role of Antichrist, that is to say, Daniel's 4th beast, are destroyed at that time. And so is the dominion of the leopard, the bear, and the lion, as you can see in Daniel chapter 7, verses 11 and 12. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast, which was diverse from all the others, which means different because it's the supernatural, made up of Satan and his angels, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And when we look up this word brass in the Strong's Concordance, we're told to compare it to 5176 when we go to the Hebrew word it corresponds to, which is the same as 5175. Nakash in the Hebrew, as in that old serpent called the devil and Satan, his angels having breastplates plates of iron, as you can see in Revelation chapter 9, verse 9. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, which are the 10 fallen angel kings, and of the other which came up, the little horn, which is Satan's roll of Antichrist, before whom 3 fell, the 3 Christian nations, who will be plucked up by the roots at the woe of the 6th trumpet, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them, when he makes war against the 2 witnesses, and shall overcome them and kill them, as you can see in Revelation chapter 11, verse 7. 3.5 days before the true Christ returns, the 2 witnesses being most likely Moses and Elijah, until the Ancient of Days came at the 7th trumpet, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom, as you can see in Revelation chapter 20, verses 4 through 6. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom on earth, along with the lion, bear, and leopard, beginning at the woe of the 5th trumpet, which shall be diverse, which means different from all kingdoms, because it's supernatural, and shall devour the whole earth, and tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, the 10 fallen angel kings that reign 1 hour with Satan, and another shall rise after them in the middle of the hour of temptation, when he appears as Antichrist, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. The 3 kings of the south we'll read of in Daniel chapter 11, that make up the lion, the Christian nations, until they're plucked up by the roots and are no longer Christian nations, but anti-Christian nations, because that's when they begin to worship the Antichrist, receiving the mark of the beast in their forehead, the deception that Satan is Jesus. All but those of the Zadok who understand the truth of God's word to the point that they can't be deceived, who are then delivered up, at which time the Holy Spirit speaks through them, bringing the 144,000 as well as whosoever will out of Babylon, which means confusion, and back into God's family tree, the tree of life. The 10 horns which thou sawest, which John saw, are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast, beginning at the woe of the 5th trumpet, when they're cast to earth with Satan, who is the beast, written of in the 12th verse of Revelation 17, as well as that entire chapter. In Revelation 13 verse 1 should actually read, he stood on the sand of the sea, the subject of the last verse of the previous chapter being the dragon. After he's cast from heaven unto the earth along with his angels, the dragon stood on the sand of the sea, and then John saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Not the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit and goeth into perdition, but the one world political system that rises up out of the sea, which is symbolic of peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, as we also know from Revelation chapter 17. And the dragon gives that first beast, the one world political system, its power, seat, and great authority, as you can see in Revelation chapter 13 verse 2. And again, the 10 fallen angel kings receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast, the hour of temptation. That word beast in Revelation 17 means Satan himself, also known as the dragon, as opposed to the one world political system in Revelation 13, called there the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed, and that happens when Satan appears as the false Christ. So when you keep the terminology separate in your mind regarding that word beast, as far as Revelation 17 is concerned, you'll have a far more vivid understanding of the chronological order of events.